selling out the Forum. You know, first Madison Square Garden, now the Forum. And he's doing it because the fans just want to see him in the ring, regardless of who he fights against.
Tom, obviously.
Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So Tom Loeffler, the man you guys just seen in my intro right there, Golovkin's promoter, he just basically debunked reports of Gennady Golovkin being in negotiations with WBO champion Billy Joe Saunders. Basically, Tom Loeffler said the rumors are not true, and we're mainly trying to pursue a Canelo Alvarez fight. Now, we already know that was the obvious right there. He said that they're 100% focused on Danny Jacobs, and of course, they're going to look for other opponents. Now, something that I am going to quote that he said at the end of this little interview that he did. Here, let me go ahead and pull it up if I can right now, because I thought this was really interesting what he said at the end of this piece. He said, and I quote, "The good thing is if he's successful in March," meaning Golovkin, "I think it will finally open up all doors for the big fights that he's been seeking out for the last 5 years." Now, if you go back and you listen to what Tom Loeffler said in my intro, you'll notice he basically said it really doesn't matter who Golovkin fights. The fans, they will fill up arenas no matter who he fights. So Tom was acknowledging that even if Golovkin is in a ring with a soft touch, it doesn't matter because these fans, they're going to root for him no matter who he fights. But with him just saying this, that hopefully if he gets past Danny Jacobs in March, now we can go after the big fights. So it's somewhat of an admission that Gennady Golovkin has not been facing the best competition. He hasn't really been in the big fights. Now, obviously, that's not all of Golovkin's fault, because we all know that Golovkin, he's always wanted the big fights like Canelo and Floyd Mayweather. But when I say big fights, I'm talking about even the big fights that may be a risk, that may have a little bit of a danger sign next to their name. And hopefully that's what Tom Loeffler meant when he said, if Golovkin gets past Danny Jacobs, now we can start targeting the big fights. Once again, we already know that they want Canelo. We already know that they wanted Floyd Mayweather. We know that they wanted Carl Froch. But I truly believe that if Golovkin gets, Billy Joe Saunders, and he unifies the belts like he said he wanted, the real challenges will be to possibly either stay at 168, fight Lara, fight Demetrius Andrade or Charlo. Jamal Charlo, he's going back and forth saying that he will go up to middleweight. Now, I'm only saying if these guys elect to move up to middleweight, okay? If they elect to move up to middleweight, of course, Golovkin versus Charlo, that's a 50-50 fight. Golovkin versus Demetrius Andrade is a 50-50 fight. This is only if they move up to middleweight. Erislandy Lara has already said that he was willing to move up to middleweight to fight Gennady Golovkin. Now, I want to make this clear. Me personally, I don't feel that Tom Loeffler is trying to protect Golovkin and keep him away from the toughest competition like Erislandy Lara or Andre Ward or whatever the case may be. I truly believe that it is Gennady Golovkin choosing not to fight these guys. And mainly because of the interview I did with Virgil Hunter. You guys can check out that video. I'll try to look it up and put the link in the description box. But Virgil Hunter basically said he talked to one of Golovkin's closest relatives. And he was saying that Golovkin himself personally never wanted to fight Andre Ward. Now, this is once again what Virgil Hunter is telling me on camera, okay? But going back to Lara though, even with the Lara situation, when you hear Tom Loeffler or you hear fans say, well, Lara, he never called us up. I mean, of course, he's sending out tweets and he's doing all this kind of stuff, but he's never called us out. He's never sent us a contract. Now, let me ask everyone a question. If fighters like Adama, Willie Monroe, David Lemieux, Marco Antonio Rubio, Gabe Rosado, if none of these fighters sent Gennady Golovkin a contract, why did Golovkin fight those guys? One more question. Carl Froch, Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather. And when I mention Canelo, I'm talking about before Canelo just recently said, sent Golovkin an offer. Before that, I'm talking about the last 2 years. Canelo Alvarez has been aggressively calling out these three fighters, Mayweather, Carl Froch, and I forgot, Julio Cesar Chavez, and Canelo Alvarez. None of those guys had ever sent Golovkin a contract. And Golovkin, he was showing up at Canelo Alvarez fights. He was still pursuing a fight with a guy that never sent him a contract. So why is it I could probably name about 20 opponents on Golovkin's resume that never sent Golovkin a contract and they got a fight with Golovkin? Why is it Lara is getting all of this special treatment to where he has to send a contract? And how often do you see the B side send a contract to the A side and say, look, I want to fight you and I want this amount of money. I want to fight on this date. Take it or leave it, buddy. This is not what you hear from the A side. This is not what you hear from the B side. This is often what you hear from the A side, right? It's the A side who picks the opponent, and it's the B side who sits around hoping that it will be them, hoping that they're in the sweepstakes, right? So when I hear Tom Loeffler say a lot of people claim they want to fight Golovkin, but then when they get the opportunity, they pull out. Now, that may be the case for some opponents, but at the same time, when it comes to Erislandy Lara, it doesn't make any sense that Golovkin would be willing to call out a guy who hasn't sent him a contract, right? And hasn't even called him out. But he doesn't want to fight the guy who is actually calling him out. That doesn't logically make sense. And one more time, fans cannot use the excuse that, oh, Lara, he's a junior middleweight. He's not even a middleweight. He needs to move up to middleweight first before he talks about fighting Golovkin, because Kell Brook didn't have to do that. Kell Brook was a welterweight, smaller than Lara. You can't use the excuse that, the fight, it's because Lara, he doesn't fight on HBO and a network beef. You can't use that excuse. Why? Because Lara's manager told me personally they're willing to fight on HBO to get a Golovkin fight. An excuse, because Golovkin, he fought Willie Monroe, who has a style identical to Erislandy Lara's style. The only difference is Lara has way more knockouts and he's way more known, and he has a disputed win against Canelo Alvarez. Depending on who you're talking to, the fight was that close. It could have went either way. So once again, I personally believe that Golovkin not facing Andre Ward, Erislandy Lara, it doesn't have anything to do with Golovkin's promoter. I don't even think it has anything to do with Abel Sanchez, Golovkin's trainer. Maybe it has a little to do with Abel, but I think it mainly has everything to do with Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin is a very smart man. He was a silver medalist. Was he a silver or a bronze? I believe he was a silver medalist in the Olympics. And he knows how good these Cuban fighters are. He knows how good these fighters that won gold medals in the Olympics are. He knows this already because he won a medal himself. So skill recognizes skill at the end of the day. But that's all I got for now, guys. I just wanted to report the fact that Tom Loeffler said that those are just rumors, that, Golovkin is pursuing Billy Joe Saunders fight. I mean, for all we know, maybe they are still looking at that as a backup plan if they don't get the Canelo fight, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in March against Danny Jacobs before we even talk about all of that. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
You're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Woo! Hey.
Yeah.